of the Wireless Communications Alliance. Before we get into the program, I wanted to just ask a few questions of the audience. First of all, how many folks are attending WCA for the first time tonight? By a show of hands, please. That's great. Oh, new audience, love that. Now, we, as you may know, the Wireless Communications Alliance has an education mission, and what we do is we reach out to universities and colleges, and the goal of that program is really to encourage students who are not quite sure what they want to do to consider wireless as a career, because of course those of you who have been in the industry know it's becoming increasingly hard to find people who have wireless backgrounds to fill the positions in the companies, in research and academia, and in startups that are necessary to keep our industry going. So by a show of hands, how many people here are students from university? If you would please raise your hand. Great. Welcome. We've had very good response to our academia program, and there are quite a few students here on the registration list. So I know sometimes it's hard for students to get around. We don't always have transportation, so we're glad that you're here. And of course, free food always helps with students. Right? So we'll be getting into the event shortly here. I want to give our host, Silicon Valley Bank, a chance to speak and say a few words. Carrie Walsh has been extremely generous with us over the years, and we've hosted here before. It's always great to be here. We always get more than we ask for, and we really appreciate that. So I'm going to hand it off to Carrie Walsh, and thank you for coming. I'll close out at the end, and we'll have a couple of announcements at that time. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. So again, my name is Carrie Walsh. I'm the Managing Director with Silicon Valley Bank. I lead the Entrepreneur Services team at SVB, and it's my team's initiative to identify best-of-breed emerging companies that are fostering new innovation in the market. And once we identify those companies and they are clients of the bank, then it's my team that once again really unleashes the bank's deep relationships in the market in ways that we hope at the end of the day help these young entrepreneurs grow and succeed. And we do that by connecting the dots when those clients are fundraising and introducing them to angels, to institutional VCs, to corporate VCs, and to their peers in some really unique ways, whether it's private introductions, which are really so much about the key to success in the Valley, to executing on well over 80 proprietary events throughout the country that are sector-driven, that are really all about engaging early-stage entrepreneurs in ways that help them better execute and better understand the opportunities and challenges in the market. So it's events like this that, once again, we're proud to be involved with. The WCA has been working with us for a few years. We're always glad to host this event. It's always an educational opportunity. It's good to see all of you here. I know it'll be an interesting evening. Thank you to our panelists for your time tonight. We really appreciate you being here. And thank you to the WCA. I'm going to turn it over to Tristan.
Thank you.
Thanks all for coming here tonight. Just a quick, to set the stage, we've prepared a few slides to give you some context around this whole topic that we're going to deep dive on today regarding the mobile devices themselves and the mobile user experience evolution. Key trends and statistics that may be of your interest to level set set the stage for the panel that we're going to explore today. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you have attended our last year's sensors, event? Wow, quite a few. Maybe a good quarter of you. That's great. So this event is designed to be a follow-on to that event. That event was a very successful event, hosted at Qualcomm last year, with more than 200, almost 30 people showing up within the audience. But this event is, a follow-on, looking back, on the past year, but looking forward also over the next 4 or 5 years to see where we are headed with this whole user experience evolution. In terms of our agenda for today, I'll go through some agenda flow to give you a sense. So we're going to give you a quick opening presentation as I just explained to you. Then we will spend an hour going through the panel discussions, finishing off towards the end, short 20 to 25 minute Q&A with you guys in the audience. So please do help us manage through this very tight schedule by holding off on your questions towards the end. And one update that I would like to share with you is that unfortunately, as some of you may have noticed, one of our 5 panelists could not make it due to a family emergency last night. She needed to, her name is Carolina Milanesi from Gartner. She's the VP of Research. She would like to share her apologies for not joining because she needed to fly to North Carolina all of a sudden. But we have 4 very strong, high caliber panelists today. I'd like to help field any questions across across the mobile ecosystem. Towards the end, after the Q&A, after the formal event is over, we'll spend a few minutes raffling away, very excitingly, thanks to Samsung Electronics for sponsoring 2 Galaxy S4s to give away towards the end. Similar to last year, we've done the similar thing last year. And also thanks to Verizon Wireless for sponsoring Galaxy Tab 10 as well for our event. So with that, we'll spend some time for those who are interested afterwards to answer any other questions that you might have during the post-event networking session. So let me give you some, let's spend 5 minutes here just going through just 5 key points that we want to pay, have your attention, as we explore this panel Q&A today. 5 mega trends that we have been observing and going to see more accelerated pace of these trends going forward. One is diversifying sizes of these screens of devices, right? Especially true in Android. There's devices that have larger screen size smartphones that are, not too different from phablets. Phablets is a phone tablet. It's a 5.5, 6-inch large smartphone that is suited more for business applications, and smaller sized tablets. So that is going to be an interesting. Can you really differentiate your user experience in these cases around these different categories of devices? Second trend is, as we were exploring last year, smarter and smarter context-aware UX that enrich further our and evolve around the sensor fusion trend that we talked about last year extensively. So more and more sensors are getting introduced. There's close to, in this gadget here, which you see, which some of you will get access to today, Galaxy S4, it has 20 native sensors. 20 native sensors that go into this, and it is a very smart context-aware setup, both hardware enabled and software enabled. That will be, our panel will address some of the questions around that today. Third trend is advanced gestures and some smart object detection and recognition that is going to accelerate over the next few years. Finally, extending traditionally touch-ruled or touch-based UI. We're getting into this journey of finally moving and extending the whole user experience above and beyond just a simple touch experience. Fourth is inter-device connectivity and cloud synchronization. So inter-device could be both interconnecting among these different mobile devices, phones, the tablets, but not only that, but from the mobile devices themselves to home appliances and automobiles and the lives around, the equipment that surround us is an interesting trend. You see more and more car companies advertising around how embedded your mobile experience and wireless experience is in your car, and that opens up a new possibility around this trend. Last but not least is the taking off of this wearable, and there's this industry term innovated by this research company called Analysis, accessories. Apps, accessories, which are the wearables, mobile wearable devices that extend your device interaction. primarily springing off of smartphones. So those are key 5 trends that we see in the industry going forward. Okay, next is some stats that may be of interest to all of you. If you look at this trend, it is sort of an eye chart here, but you can see that the blue section here is part of the smartphones. The next, the red here are the tablets. Those two really dominate the growth. The third is the mobile, PCs, as we call it. As you see these transitions going from the PC era over to an ARM-based mobile era, you can see that by 2021 timeframe, more than 2 billion smartphones will, pervade the market, as well as of particular interest is wearables. These wearables / accessories taking up close to 1 billion units. And this is opening up, and today we have Pebble, representing that segment today. So, it is a very fast pace. If you look at these wearable device line over here, the growth that is anticipated over the next, decade is staggering. So, that is an interesting stat. And the next is these other three slides have been contributed by, thanks to Gartner, Carolina. She wasn't able to make it today, but I'm going to just quickly introduce you to some stats here that she contributed. As you can see, now Gartner is now double-clicking into the device side, the mobile device side. With the phones categorized into different categories: the utility phones, the smartphone, premium phones is i.e. Smartphones, which is green. You can see that the smartphone is really, as a category, taking over the entire mobile handset market, more than half of it, the demand over the next 2-3 years. As well as traditionally, there's going to be a tremendous push for migration over from a desktop-based PC over to the mobile PC, led by these trends that you see in the shift. Okay, and of course, last but not least, the tablets are expected to finally grow out of their, the basic tablets are, the lower end tablets, but premium tablets are highlighted over here. As you can see, there's increasingly, great demand that is driven by the tablets themselves. That is going to sustain the device market growth of almost 9% year over year, starting this year going forward. Okay, next, from all these devices, category of the devices, if you look across the OS platform that fuel these devices, this is a particular chart that is of interest. You can see that from over here, I'll use my mouse here. The blue chunk here are the other, non-iOS, non-Windows, non-Android piece. Looking back 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, 2010, it used to represent close to 75% of the entire, very fragmented, market. Clearly heading towards more of a, converged, three-legged horse race, led by Android, of course. This year we're here, but the Gartner, by the way, Gartner has been, proven for its relative accuracy of this forecast long term when it comes to mobile handsets and devices. So, the Android definitely is going to lead that horse race, although, iOS will still be in the race. And with Windows growing, moderately but not really, at a high growth rate pace. So it's all about, in the short term, the users and the user experience that we're all trying to create, as I hinted earlier, will evolve around compatibility and, across inter-devices, and just having a very seamless, rich user experience, common across a single operating system, whether it be a phone or a tablet or even smart devices around, accessories around you. Okay, and The last piece here to point out is the horizontal ecosystems, which means that the however, then using the same trend, horizontal ecosystem is the same OS platform would address different categories of devices and screen sizes, but it might not be for everyone. It's specifically pointing towards iOS devices, right? That tend to lock in people's user experience and data. Okay, all right. Last but not least, this is the final slide that Carolina wanted to leave you guys with on the wearable smart device trend. Gartner clearly, you can read through all these bullet points here, but what's important, I think, is that these wearables will be initially taken up by these specific, I really like the term accessories, the accessory use cases around us, starting from athletic shoes or some fitness applications to health assistant kind of application to having a convenience extended display off of your phone to your wrist or your wearable experience. That will initially fuel this very bullish growth over the next decade. And last but not least, they're also equally projecting, similar to what I showed you earlier, $10 billion in product revenue potential over the next short years, combined with a CAGR growth rate of almost 24 to 25% between now and over the next 4 years. That's what Gartner is projecting. That's what the rest of the industry is projecting. So we are really at the onset of that hockey stick adoption of these wearable devices, and it's so with that, it's an exciting time to be understanding and looking out towards the future, what this future holds for mobile UX. And with that, I would like to hand this over to our moderator to jumpstart our panel tonight. And Mark Hone, our VP of Wireless Research at Gartner, will be moderating our panel for us. Mark, on stage.
Thanks, Tristan. And actually, Tristan forgot to mention one of the raffle prizes was going to be Samir's Google Glass, so be sure to hold on to your ticket. And I'd like to have the panelists introduce themselves first. First of all, Samir Kumar from Qualcomm. And everyone hear me okay?
Yeah. So I'm Samir Kumar. I look after business development and product management for Qualcomm Research. We have a lab here in Silicon Valley and obviously headquarters down in San Diego. And pretty much everything you just heard around wearable devices, context awareness, and the evolution of mobile user experience is something I get to live and breathe every day. And not to be outdone by the jawbone up that I see on Laura's hand and the pebble on the other panelists, I decided to bring on my Google Glass so that you guys can see what this is about as well.
My name is Laura Diaz. I work with Verizon Wireless out of our Innovation Center in downtown San Francisco. I have a small innovation and incubation team that basically identifies and creates new products and services for new markets for Verizon Wireless. Typically, we partner with startups to basically co-develop the ideas and create end-to-end demonstrations and prototypes of these products and services, and then eventually take them to market.
Wonderful. Hi everyone, I'm Samir Bala. I work at Samsung Mobile's User Experience Lab in San Jose and in San Francisco. The vision of our team is really we try to envision what the smartphone experience will be. Smartphones, tablets, etc. It could be wearables, it could be a lot of things. My role specifically on the team has to do with business strategy as well as business development in the Bay, and harnessing a lot of the value that we see in startups and helping them enter the Samsung fold and making some really awesome products.
Hi everyone, my name is Asad Iqbal. I'm with Pebble. I'm in charge of growth and business development for Pebble. If any of you guys are not familiar with Pebble, we were a Kickstarter funded project about a year ago, and we were the most funded Kickstarter ever. So that speaks for wearables and watches. So pretty much I lead the platform and anyone who wants to build apps in this world realm.
Great, thanks a lot for Azan. So I think the way we're going to do questions today is the first few questions are going to be group questions. So some of them all the panelists will answer. Others, a few of them will do so. And then afterwards, we're going to have individual questions for each of the panelists. And finally, we'll open it to the floor for you guys to ask your questions. So the first question I have for the whole panel tonight, and if each of you can take a minute or two to answer this, is that, I think actually, Samsung is a great embodiment of this trend where, for mobile devices, whether you go from, smartphones to tablets, to convertibles, to phablets, there's just so many different form factors today for mobile devices. And personally, I don't see a problem with that, but I was like, share feedback on, do you see that as a positive or negative trend? And, it's especially pronounced in the Android ecosystem. Samir? Go ahead. Everybody's going to answer this. Don't be shy.
So I personally, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think one size does not fit all. And having different perspectives, where let's say on Android you get all the choice that you want, whereas on iOS or Windows Phone there's very set things that you can do, and only doing it on particular form factor devices. So I think the underlying question what you're asking is, what does this mean for fragmentation? And screen size is not the part of device fragmentation that worries me. I think I'm more concerned about what's happening underneath in terms of the software libraries, the sensors that ship on these devices, and if those get fragmented, that's a much bigger problem in terms of providing a consistent user experience and enabling everyone to have device choice, but still be able to say, I want to have the full context awareness experience on my phone, but maybe I can't because for some reason my phone doesn't have sensor X or sensor Y. So I think APIs, software libraries, and things like hardware subsystems, if those get fragmented, that's a bigger problem. But I think we will see that as far as screen size is concerned, that's a solvable problem. Apple has already demonstrated that you can do some interesting things to deal with that. And I think what we saw recently from Google at I/O with their new developer tool where developers can see in real time what the UI is going to look like on different screen sizes so that they can account for that as they're coding their application. I think it's a very solvable problem, and I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think for consumers it's a very positive thing. I think it's an exciting time in the world of mobile and wearables, and people are increasingly interested in trying out different form factors. I have 2 devices myself, but how many people in the audience have more than one non-PC or laptop device? Most everybody. So in terms of that, I think this idea that people have to pick one device that's going to fit everything has kind of been blown out the window. The price of devices is coming way down, and people are not afraid to carry more than one device. So in terms of that fragmentation, I think it opens up a lot of great opportunities for consumers to try out different devices to see what they like best for different functions. I think it's also a great opportunity for app developers and the software developers out there. There's a lot of opportunity to create very specific types of consumer type applications and enterprise applications that fit a specific form factor. I carry around this Galaxy Note 2 for work, and I find that there's actually not a lot of applications that are utilizing that large screen. I'd love it for email, but my touchdown for Android is just a bigger version of what I have for my smaller device. So I think that there's still a lot of opportunity for application developers to capitalize on some of these different hardware form factors.
I also agree. But I think, I look at this problem, I take a step back and think about what happened when the smartphone era first started. When it first started, there was really just BlackBerry for business and the iPhone for the consumer segment. And having these few options really helped people get comfortable with the technology. It allowed kind of the virality of saying, hey, you have a BlackBerry, I have a BlackBerry. You have an iPhone, I have an iPhone. This is cool. Let's see what we can learn. It really helped people get comfortable with smartphones as a whole. But then people got comfortable. People got bored. People said, I want to try different options. I want to see different device sizes. I want to see different input mechanisms. I want something different. So overall, for consumers, it gave consumers choice, which is always a wonderful thing. To echo a point that Laura said also, From the app developer's perspective, it now gives them a bigger tool set. It gives app developers a chance to say, okay, I have some really, really innovative features, some innovative experiences that I can do with, for instance, a stylus, or different gestures, or so on and so forth. So ultimately, from the app developer's perspective, it gives them options to innovate. It gives them a basis to innovate. From the user's perspective, it also lets the market help decide, what is the right size, what is the right form factor.
Yeah. Going back to what everyone said, I totally agree with everyone that fragmentation is not the biggest issue that we're facing today. Building apps myself, I had to go through the challenges of figuring out what devices to support and what resolutions to build on. But ultimately, now that the low-end software is really kind of catching up to what the developers are looking for as far as tools to build across multiple devices, it's starting to come to a point where developers now have the tools, and consumers can now start seeing these experiences that they're finding on iOS early on and now on Android pretty fluently across both platforms. So it's not the biggest bottlenecks moving forward. For consumers, like everyone said, it's just a better option to have an upgraded device with more capabilities that they weren't able to have with their existing device. So as the future unfolds, we'll see a lot of different devices that are going to come apart, but the underlying softwares will catch up. And today we're starting to see the efforts of early progress on platforms expanding out. So it's definitely not as big of a problem as some people.
Great, thanks a lot, Hassan. So I'm going to come back to Samir. One of the first things you mentioned is that I think the panel's in agreement here where screen size is really not the biggest fragmentation issue. There's a host of other issues that could crop up. So I'm going to come to one of the ones you mentioned, which is the capabilities of the phones may be different, right? In terms of sensors or different APIs or whatever. So what is the model for? I mean, how do you solve that problem today, and how do you see that going forward in terms of this fragmentation of, let's forget about screen sizes. Maybe screen size is just one of the features, but fragmentation of the issues. Is this current model of write one app for the OS and deploy everywhere still sustainable, or there needs to be a new model?
I don't know if I have a clear yes or no answer to that question, but I think that's where the platform providers really play a very, very big role. So let's just take sensors as an example. It's great to see that the S4 has, 20 or however many sensors it does, but most phones today don't. So if you're a developer and you want to build some kind of application that is either, let's say, tracking your activity, or you want to use the barometer to figure out what floor someone is on when they're doing things like indoor location, well, you can't count on that barometer being there on every single phone. So what do? And so that's where, when you think about what Google is doing and what they recently announced at I/O around a new way or a new API they're going to expose in Android to detect things like activity, to detect things like how to do a geofence. What ends up happening is you have a standard set of interfaces for developers, but then underneath the covers, you either do a very high quality implementation, a very low power implementation, and you don't ask the developer to worry about which device are you targeting. There's an abstraction layer the developer targets, and then on the actual device, whether it's from Samsung with a Qualcomm silicon in it, or it's from somebody else, you are able to say, this is what the developer wants, what's the best way for me to give that to them using the actual capabilities I have on that device.
Okay, Samir, do you have anything to add to that? Coming from an OEM perspective?
Yeah, I would actually, that's absolutely valid points that the other Samir made. Looking from a handset manufacturer's perspective, Samsung is heavily an Android shop. However, one thing that Samsung strives to do is to differentiate itself from other other Android OEMs. So how do we do that? We have to find a way to provide a differentiated experience. And this actually rides the balance that Samir was talking about. Everyone can develop to Android, so they get a core basis of APIs, so on and so forth. But from Samsung's perspective, for example, we offer additional APIs which if your app is running on a Samsung device, guess what? Your app is going to be that much more better for whatever reason. Some very, very quick examples from the enterprise side, for instance. There's a lot of security requirements when you're working with an application within your corporate firewall. Now, for one of those technologies is, for instance, AES encryption. Really getting the tunnel very, very, very secure. We offer that on a hardware level. So to get to that level of hardware encryption that your enterprise might need, you come to a Samsung device because we have that extra functionality. Another example would be the stylus, which you're going to hear a lot about tonight. Samsung calls it the S Pen. But the stylus also offers extra functionality. So how do we get that? How do we offer that to our end users? We offer those APIs to developers so that they can build apps and really innovate. Again, innovate on this extra functionality that an OEM can provide above and beyond Android.
Great, great. So maybe moving on to the next topic. I think Assad is getting a little lonely over there.
Oh no.
So
I'm enjoying everyone's comments.
So with the kind of the whole wearable phenomenon, right? So do you see that as being synergistic with the overall, this mobile device growth with smartphones and tablets, or do you see it as more, cannibalistic, where it's going to fragment the market further?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and this is something that Pebble, being one of the kind of only and kind of leaders, you could call it, in smartwatches, we ask ourselves a lot is, do we know if this is going to be fragmented? And really, because smartwatches and wearables are so new, it's really hard to predict what they'll end up being utilized for. And as far as what we see, today, there's just an increase of demand for people that want extended experiences from away from their smartphones, and Pebble is just a good example of a product that takes that extended functionality and basically creates a subset of functionality that you can use for a sole purpose. So in essence, it is fragmenting the app market, the smartphone market, but it's a very highly functional fragmentation. So it's something that would be highly utilized. So it's not a bad fragmentation.
Okay. And Samir down there, I think earlier this year, Samsung came out and said, "Oh, we're working on a watch too."
Absolutely.
So, so what's your view of this market?
Yeah, the wearable space, wearable devices like the Google Glasses, smartwatches, they're fundamentally different devices than mobile phones. The interaction models with these devices are fundamentally different. With smartphones, we're used to touching. With the watch, is that the right thing to do? With the TV, you can now wave your hands with gestures this way. That's probably not. Maybe that'll work on a smartwatch. That's the kind of the work I think that Assad's team is trying to figure out and really make happen. The other part is people will pull value from these devices in a different way. For instance, on a watch, I might not want to be burdened with all the notifications I get on my phone. Maybe just the most relevant notifications come to my phone. Maybe some people want to use it that way. Whereas the other perspective is, my phone is on my wrist, I can see it without pulling out my phone. I want everything on this phone. So what we end up getting are still very different ways that we can use these devices. But ultimately, all of these accessories are going to be tied to your phone or offer some level of value with your phone. So I actually see, the growth in mobile and the growth in wearables being very, very tightly knit. Very related. And again, one will just help the other.
Okay, great. And I'm not sure if you guys remember this. A few years ago when Steve Jobs went up there and introduced the iPad, the Apple stock fell that same day because people were like, what are they going to use this thing for, right? And so I think the same question I have for you on the wearable. So maybe Assad first. So what do you think is going to be the killer app for the smartwatch?
So today, what we see people using the smartwatch for is it's a secondary form of a heads-up display for pretty much things that are happening in your smartphone world. So your emails, your calls, text messages, and basically snippets of data that you get that you usually have to take out your phone and search through a notification feed to find, where you can easily get this information right on your wrist and determine if you want to deal with it or not in real time, and not have to disrupt what you're doing in your everyday life. So it's a killer use case, just being able to do something like that. But we're seeing a lot of trends in fitness. We're seeing a lot of trends in monitoring other third-party hardware, as well as being able to extend the functionality from existing apps that you guys use every day. So things like Runkeeper, which is an app that lets you measure your activity. Instead of you running with your phone in your hand, you can now view how fast you're walking or running, the distance you've traveled right on your wrist. And so it's really, bridging a new kind of paradigm for users.
Great. I'm not sure if any of you saw the 60 Minutes interview from a couple weeks ago with Bill Gates, right? So Bill Gates was up there, saying again, Microsoft really invented the tablet, right? And I'm going to come back, Microsoft kind of invented the smartwatch too. So they had the Spot, smartwatch a few years ago. So Samir from Samsung. So email, or notifications, the Spot had those too. So why do you think the smartwatches are going to succeed now versus where Spot failed?
Smartwatches, there's two parts, and I think the first part is focusing on the user, and users being conditioned and trained and understanding the value of these devices. I still remember the one Microsoft watch from the 90s, I believe, where it had a barcode on it, right? And you put the barcode up on the screen, and the screen would interact with your device. This was very, very, very basic. Anytime you wanted to interact, you have to put your hand up. It was very unnatural. So I think now that users are very, very, very familiar and comfortable with having a lot of their information, a lot of value add from these mobile devices, it's almost like an extension. It's almost like if my phone is in my pocket and my watch is on my watch is on my wrist. So guess what? I can get to certain functionality from my wrist. So there's three overall models, I think, where we see smartwatches and how they're going to come in and how they're going to interface with your smartphone. The three ways, like there's a complementary, console, and what I call augmented. Complementary is going to be, there's some functionality on my phone, and there's a subset of the functionality on my watch. So they kind of work very together. The second is going to be what I call console, which is, I think, more in the medical space. In the medical space and in the fitness space. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to have Laura's, is that a Fitbit? Jawbone watch, running around San Francisco, come home, but I'm not going to interface with this device, while I'm using it, like primarily while I use it, but when it interfaces with my phone. When I get to my phone, I can then see my lap, see the map of where I ran, so on and so forth. But the full functionality comes out with the phone. And the third way is the augmented way, which is more, I think, with the Google Glasses approach, where you have this completely different experience that you wouldn't be able to create with a mobile phone. But you need the mobile phone to either, provide an internet connection, to provide access to very relevant data like your contacts, your messaging scheme. So there's three, I think, very distinct ways we're going to see wearables coming in, and each of them are going to have one or a set of killer use cases, if you will.
Great, thanks, Samir. So Laura, you mentioned the point earlier on with your use of the Note 2. So I think you talked about touchdown. I'm not sure if everybody here knows